Hi everyone, welcome to week 5 of the course. Today I'm going to take you through 2 different ways of getting the user's attention and also transitioning to a modal view. So if you start up Xcode, and we're going to create a new project, and we're going to create a single view application, and for this one we're going to call it alerts. Make sure its device family is iPhone and use automatic reference counting is checked. Hit the next button and then choose a place to save it. Okay, so like we've seen in last weeks, we have a viewcontroller.h file, viewcontroller.m file, and a viewcontroller.xib. So if we click on the .xib file and then choose the split view, we will have our view and our .h file. So for this first little bit of coding, what we're going to do is create what's called a UI alert view, which is one of those little pop-ups that you quite often see on the iPhone. And ultimately, we're going to be able to take some information from that UI alert view in the form of a username and password, and then we're going to evaluate the username and password and see if the user has entered the correct username and password, and then based on that evaluation, put some text into a label. So to start with, we want a button, and when we touch the button, that will create the alert view. So in the usual fashion, drag out a UI button, and then we can call this something like that, alert me. So from this button we want to trigger an action. So as per usual, control, click, drag, release, and we want an action. And we're going to call this alert me. Touch them inside, sender, connect. Now we'll create our label now, but we won't be using it for the first couple of examples, but we'll create the outlet anyway. So we want an outlet, and let's call this password label connect. Okay, so let's head on over to the .m file. Give ourselves some room, and all the way to the bottom where we have our alert view method. So in here we're going to create our UI alert view. So we start by calling the class, which is UI alert view. Give it a name, my alert equals UI alert view alloc init. And as before, we get a number of different options. We can just say init, or we can use a convenience method, and that's what we're going to do. So we use this 4th version here, init with title, message, delegate, etc. So we select that one, and I'll just do that and bring that up a bit. Okay, so this string of code here will allow us to create a new alert with a title, okay, a message underneath that title. I'll talk about delegates in a little bit. We can choose to have a cancel button title, and we can choose to have other buttons titled with different strings. Okay, so all of these options, 4 of these options, except that one, take an NS string as its argument. So we can simply do message title, and the message is, this is an alert. Now for the delegate, for now, we will put nil. The cancel button title, we will put nil. And the other button titles, we will say OK. Close off the method and a semicolon. Now that will create a new alert view, but it doesn't actually put it onto the screen. So what we have to do is send a message to my alert, and that message is called show. Okay, now when we run that and push our button called alert me, we should then get a UI alert view pop up. So alert me, and there we get our UI alert view pop up with the message title, the actual message itself, and then just a single button called OK, which is what we asked down here. And then we can dismiss that by hitting the OK button. Alright, so that's the most basic form of a UI alert view. The next thing that we could do is we could simply add a cancel button title, and to do that we change nil to a string, so we could just say cancel like that, run it again, and now we have the same message, but we have an OK button and a cancel button. Now at the moment both of these things do the same thing, they just dismiss the alert view. Okay, but you might want a situation where selecting OK actually does something. It might delete something, or it might allow the user to choose an option. Cancel is to allow the person to change their mind. So they might have pushed that button to delete something, and then they think, no, I shouldn't have done that. So it's always when you're using the alert view to do something, okay, it's always advisable to put a cancel button in, and that's all you need to do. You just need to give a string value to this cancel button title. So we've put in an OK button and a cancel button title, but this part of the method, the initialization, is called other button titles. So that means that we can have more than one title. So all we have to do is have a comma separated list of strings. So we could say, have another one called maybe later, comma, and then nil. So that will create a third button called maybe later. So we've got our cancel button, and then we've got our two action buttons. So depending on which one the person uses, you could do a different, you could trigger a different action. Now this list here can have any number of strings, so any number of buttons that you wish. You don't want to have too many because it will potentially confuse the user, but to have 2 or 3 is certainly no problem at all. Now the second option that we can have is to change the style of UI alert view. So at the moment we haven't chosen an option for that, so it's given us the default value. But if we create a new line of code after we've created it, but before we show it, we can choose to use a different style. So all we have to say is, my alert dot alert view style equals UI alert view style, and we get 4 options. We get the default, login and password input, plain text input, and secure text input. So I'm going to choose this plain text input to start with, and actually I'll take out that option, so we just have an OK button and a cancel button. Run that. So now, rather than just having the message title and the message and the 2 buttons, we have a space where we can type a message. And that could be for any type of input. That could be for a password, or it could be for a username. Okay, so that's just plain text input. As a progression from that, we can also have login and password input. So in this case, we get 2 text field entries, one for the login and one for the password. Okay, so you could have an email address and a password. Now at the moment that is not doing anything. Okay, but what I'm going to show you next is how can we take the information that is typed into these text fields. They're 2 separate text fields, and when the person hits the OK button, then in this case, because it is a login and a password, what we would want to do is evaluate the strings that are passed into these text fields against a known login and password. Okay, so we're going to do that now. Now to do that, I'm going to introduce to you one of the fundamental principles of iOS development, and that is using the delegate. So it's important to understand what a delegate is and what it does. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to call self on the delegate, and what that means is that we want this method and this view controller to be the delegate, and what that means is that the delegate delegates. So having a delegate method, what that means is that there will be another method associated with the delegate that can handle a task associated with this code. So in terms of this example here, when the user types in their username and password, we don't actually want this method to handle that text, to evaluate whether they've typed in the right password or the wrong password. We actually want to hand off or delegate that task to another method. Okay, so that's what delegation is all about. And so we need to tell the view controller that we're going to act as the delegate. We're going to do the delegation. We're going to delegate that task to another method within this view controller. Okay. So to do that, we have to do 2 things. The first thing we have to do is go back to the viewcontroller.h, and after it says UI view controller, we need to do a space and then open bracket and then type UI alert view, and it will code complete, and select that one, UI alert view delegate, and then close it off. Okay, and that's actually a protocol, and so what we're saying is we're conforming to the UI alert view delegate protocol, and protocols have typically a number of methods that we have to implement in order to conform to that protocol. So the UI alert view delegate has protocols, has methods that we need to implement